Hey Jared, if you can hear me, send me a message on Slack right now.
Oh, you need pins? Well, I have promotional pins all the time, a purse full.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, I say that. Then I see crayon, a red crayon.
That sounds like
Here's
it.
mine.
Then, do you have the PowerPoint moved over here yet?
On here, called LSS.
Oh,
You stick it in there.
Do you have any videos?
No. Yeah, when I said that, I thought, do I have any videos linked in this? No, I don't.
And
LSS overview.
LSS over, yep, right, Steve? That's the one.
I believe, I don't know that it's gonna matter, but I believe there is a couple second lag between you talking and it actually transmitting.
Okay.
I don't envision that really being an issue. But just to let you know.
Clicker.
There's USB drives right here too.
Okay.
That's what I usually use for class.
That's helpful.
You're higher tech here than in my teaching.
What was that?
I said you're higher tech here than in my teaching.
Where do you teach at?
I teach in a computer lab over at it's Millette.
I think it's Millette. I didn't do my undergrad here, so I do the. I've spent 95% of my time at Wright State in this building. So I think I've had like 2, maybe 3 classes outside of this building. So I still struggle.
So where'd you do your undergrad?
Oh, it's sweet.
Okay.
It was civil engineering, which is about as far away from industrial systems as you can get. I had a roommate who did industrial systems. I originally thought I was going to do environmental engineering, and at the time at OSU, that was a technical elective in the civil engineering department. But I ended up in construction for about 5 years. I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't my thing.
Yeah. Real big.
So I ended up, I was like, oh, I heard some stuff that my roommate did because we're still big friends. So, I'm going to go back to school.
If you want to switch quarters, right? You have experience or education.
I couldn't necessarily get the experience, so I don't go through education. 14 years, master's, and stick around for a PhD.
So would you end on teaching?
No, not necessarily. I do enjoy teaching. I don't know that I want to pursue it. No, I just want to solve problems, and to a degree, I see
Josh. Jared's not picking up. Can you let me know if you can see and hear me?
We'll see where the future goes. I'm happy where I'm at.
Yeah.
I don't think this will.
What?
Hi, Logan.
No, just go to like YouTube and see if it's up and going, and you can like hear me talking right now because I'm talking into the mic while I'm talking to you. Oh, yeah. 1 second.
You the man now?
And it looks like it's working now.
I think the room was actually by the special chapter, not by student chapter. So keep
So
that.
should I get stuff free?
So you bribe the students to 52 soda?
An extra credit. And it's the end of the semester.
That's a perfect time to offer extra credit, actually. Did you do something with your hair?
I just popped out of the shower.
Watched it.
All right, I sent it.
So one of them's for Karen and the other one's going to be for us. And I have them at both ends.
Hello, everybody. What? Teresa.
That is not
Yes,
something.
What? Hello to all of you watching. We are doing some test sounds right now. Please be patient and we will start shortly. Okay, I'll just keep talking. I can keep talking. You know I can keep talking.
So you work in Springfield?
All right, we will begin shortly. Please be patient. This is Distance Lab bringing you Lean vs. Six Sigma. What's right for you?
Nice to meet you. Coming? Good so far?
Da-da-da. Do, 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 do. Jared or Josh, message me, please.
Yeah, Jeremy.
Because I always find lighter background.
Yeah.
Hello, hello, hello. Hello. Oh. I think I did not press present to everyone. All right, I just clicked present to everyone.
Too dark?
Can you see it now?
Just only front row off. Else let me.
Huh.
So for
Yeah.
everyone who just walked in and has time to vote,
Oh, Jared said it's there now. Try refreshing. Try refreshing.
that would be wonderful.
Karen, your preference?
No, it doesn't matter to me. I may write on the board a little bit.
Can you see it? Can you hear me?
Ignore.
Okay.
How about that? There is a light. I'm lefty. I just don't remember with my left.
Jared, can you see the mouse moving, or is it a frozen screen?
So how long do you
Jared, if you can hear me and the mouse is moving, and Slack type Lewis is awesome. I will keep doing this until you say Lewis is awesome. Yeah, Jared said he sees the mouse moving and he can hear me. Oh, yep. Yep. All right, that passed the test. Maybe I did give you the wrong link. Let me try it again. All right. Instead of typing it out, it's youtube.com/watch V equals B capital J. That might have been where I went wrong with you. Lowercase h, capital H, capital P, lowercase v, capital O, lowercase htg. Okay. It's working. You can hear me? All right. Can you see the mouse moving? Can you hear me and see the mouse moving? All right. It's all good. All right, guys. Now for your feature presentation.
And then she coordinates projects for us. And so we're doing an energy project, we're doing a water conservation project, we're doing a lab recycling project. Yeah, so. For me?
Wow. We would love to get you a project from engineering.
Okay. Oh, we would love to have it.
Yeah. Where an engineering team with Barwani's class, they're always doing projects or presentations. Maybe a couple of engineering students hook up with a couple of farm toxicology or whatever it is, and then they come up with a common project where engineering perspectives to lean versus, in general, it's a common theme. So how do they see it? We're very cool. We should get you more often. Thank you.
Am I on?
Does it work? You let me know how you want the lights. I can help you with this fine. I'm going to be sitting right there because I am logged into the system.
Okay.
So those who are listening to your webinar, hopefully would also sign in. And if they have any questions, I'll raise on their behalf at the end of it.
Okay. If it's pertinent, feel free to raise it during too. So you don't have to listen to me yammer for 45 minutes. So.
I could do that. Yes, I'll try that. Do you want me to introduce you?
Do you want me?
Are we ready to go? You want me to go ahead and start now? With this? Yeah. 2:59. Okay. We'll stop.
Folks who just came in, please sign here, both of these sheets.
What was the name of the business again? Strategic Leadership Solutions. Nobody will. Don't know. I like when people say my name. I don't want to be one of those people.
So I'll just give you a heads up. I don't know what kind of instructor you are. I have a tendency to walk back and forth.
And I write, so I'm thinking, I can't see.
You might want to move the chair.
Yeah.
I always put it here so that I don't hit anything when I'm walking back and forth. Okay, well, it's 3:01. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I'd like to thank everybody today for attending in person and for those viewing live on YouTube. Thank you for attending today's webinar. For those of you who don't know, my name's Corinne Mowry. I'm with the IASE Professional Chapter, and this webinar is a joint production between our professional chapter and our local Wright State University chapter. And we're excited. We actually have a very full house here today. And I know I had at least 10 people online when I looked over. I suspect there might be more by now. So thank you very much. We're excited today because we have Karen Broadbeck from Strategic Leadership Solutions. Thank you. And she's going to be giving our presentation today, Lean versus Six Sigma, what's right for you. So I know that. Okay. I know that Lean and Six Sigma are big buzzwords that we hear about a lot. I know they get thrown out in class and you hear them all the time on the news. And sometimes it's hard to separate fact from fiction and appropriate uses. So we're excited to have somebody come in who knows their stuff. You're a black belt, I believe. Master black belt. No, but it means you know what you're doing. So hope everybody pays close attention. And how do you feel about asking questions? Should they ask questions as you're going? Okay, so feel free if you have questions to raise your hand and ask, and Karen will answer. And for those who are joining via YouTube, you can type it in the comment section, and there are 2 people who are manning the comment sections. We will ask those questions on your behalf. Are we ready, or a couple more? Okay. Okay. Thanks, Karen.
Yeah, so today we are looking at differences between Lean and Six Sigma. I'm going to start by kind of explaining what the traditional kind of philosophy was of each, and then what industry has done with them since then, or more recently. And so we'll compare and contrast Lean and Six Sigma. So in industry, we have 3 major things that happen. We can have delays, which means we don't get things done on time. We can have defects, which means we don't get it done right, or we can have variation, which means I don't always do it consistently. And so those are 3 elements that just suck profits out of a business or an organization. And so Lean is particularly poised to address delays that you might have. And as a side benefit, you might address some defects at the same time. Six Sigma, on the other hand, it's particularly poised to address variation. And so it tries to reduce variation and address defects at the same time. So Lean and Six Sigma have really separate focuses as they begin. So we're going to start with what Six Sigma is. And Six Sigma has a basis of statistics. And so the basis of statistics, we can go back way back to the 1800s. Schuhart and his control charts were developed in the 1920s. Six Sigma really didn't come into play until the 1980s when Motorola developed it as a process improvement mechanism for their organization. And since then, we're probably most familiar with GE because they really popularized the methodology. But thousands of other companies in all kinds of industries have implemented Six Sigma since. It had its roots in manufacturing, but since then, it's gone across healthcare, finance, and government, and just about every other industry. So a sigma, what does the sigma mean? It's a math term, and we have a lot of engineering students in here, so I hope you know what a sigma is. Stands for, it's a standard deviation, and stands for variance. And a real focus of Six Sigma is variance. How can I reduce the variation or the inconsistencies in my processes? The idea of Six Sigma is how many standard deviations can I get between a mean and a spec limit? So the smaller my standard deviation, the more of those I can fit in that space. And the ideal is 6. So if I can get 6 standard deviations between that mean and the spec limit, well, that means I would only produce 3.4 defects per million opportunities. And so if I'm creating an engineering design, there's only 3 mistakes in that. That's pretty hard. If I am processing invoices, there's only 3 mistakes out of every million that I make. And so it's a pretty lofty goal. When we read about Six Sigma, there's some major themes you're going to hear. Very, very customer focused. It is data and fact driven. And so if you're in an organization that embraces Six Sigma, if you don't have data, you don't get together and talk about it. You get the data first, and then we talk about it. It is very data and very fact driven. It is very process focused. So how does the process work? What tasks are done? Six Sigma is proactive. It's not a great reactive tool. And so if your processes, or a process has declined and it's just not functioning, it's not the time to get out the clipboard and start collecting data, okay? You have to do what you got to do, get it up and running, all right? And then maybe afterwards we take a look. My favorite projects from a Six Sigma perspective are those legacy issues, the ones that have just occurred over and over and over and over, and you've kind of pecked away at it, but you just haven't resolved it. Six Sigma is a great tool for that. It's very team focused, and that idea of 3.4 defects per million, just that idea of how perfect can we be or how perfect can we get. Six Sigma is very rigorous, and this kind of rubs some people the wrong way. They don't like to be told how to do problem solving. But the Six Sigma methodology is very common sense. It's very logical. You go through define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And each of the phases has a purpose. In the define phase, we are just scoping. We're understanding that there really is a problem, and we're validating that. When we get to the measure phase, it is all about understanding how things work. What does it look like? How does it function? What kinds of defects do we make? And making sure we have a good way of taking data and measurements. In the analyze phase, it's about understanding what's critical. So in the measure phase, I'm creating a giant list of possible causes. And in the analyze phase, I'm starting to whittle them away. So I get them down from a big list to a short list. And so at the analyze phase, I've identified what really drives that process, what's critical. In the improve phase, this is where I improve. This is where I make my improvements, implement my solutions. And then control phase, this is where we optimize and put put measures into place to make sure the solution sticks. Because sometimes, you know how people are, they like to do what they did before. And so when you make a change, if I don't put controls into place, it has a potential to just drift away. Now in industry, here's what we do. We define and improve, okay? There's a problem, all right, let's fix it, right to here, without really taking the time to understand how the process is functioning and really understanding what's critical to that process. And so a lot of times we'll make change for the sake of change, and it may not be the right change. So the purpose of the Six Sigma methodology is to force us to walk through a methodology so we think about all that encompasses in that project. In Six Sigma, this is where we have, it's rigorous. Just everything about Six Sigma is rigorous. So there are defined roles. So I worked at Navistar. That's where I got my Six Sigma training. And when they decided to implement Six Sigma in the late 90s, they had an executive team in Chicago that says, all right, this is the way we're going to do it. They had a team that determined how many from each facility would get changed, a compensation package. They, you know, all the infrastructure was decided by the executive team. And then there are champions. A champion is a person who has a vested interest in that process improvement project. And so they're high enough in an organization that if you run into a political barrier, they can push through that for you. So they need to be high enough in the organization to have authority, low enough in the organization to care about the project. And so each project that gets done has a champion. And then you have the various levels of belts. A master black belt is the highest, and then a black belt, a green belt, and a yellow belt. And other people will make up colors. There will be brown belt and a camo belt and a white belt, and you know, so there's all different colors that you might, you know, want to make a statement about, but these are the major ones. And a black belt traditionally was a full-time problem solver. So when I got my Six Sigma training, that was my job. And that's all I did, was I managed process improvement projects. What it looks like from a training perspective, and here is where you will, if you look out on the web, you will see any and everything here. I've put what traditionally Six Sigma training was. So when I went through my training, I had 16 days of black belt training, 4 days a month. So you get a week of training, you had 3 weeks to apply, you get a week of training. A green belt was roughly half of that, and then a yellow belt was half of that. So really a green belt is a subset of a black belt. So a black belt is really the 8 days of green belt plus an additional 8 days of more advanced type of statistics. Traditionally with Six Sigma, there's a project application that is required. And so I teach here at Wright State, I teach the Six Sigma classes for the Farm Talks program. And so we do green belt in the fall, black belt in the spring, and there is a requirement that they do a process improvement project. And you can attend class every day and pass all the tests, but if you don't finish your project and turn in a report, that certification doesn't come with it. It's just a class. And so they do projects here on campus to fulfill that requirement of a training project. Okay. And so out in industry, you will see everything from, I've seen as low as I think a 4-day black belt, a 1-day green belt. You know, so there's no organization that governs the Six Sigma world and said, if you're going to offer a black belt, it has to be this many days and contain this type of a content. Okay, so what I have here is a traditional kind of a 1990s model of what Six Sigma training would be. Questions so far? All right. Let's look at some potential projects that you might see as a Six Sigma project. Remember, these are all about reducing variation, reducing mistakes. And so reducing credit invoices, because I only issue a credit if I've got a mistake. Any type of a downtime, customer complaint, any type of an error backlog. Energy efficiency is up here because it's very data rich. And so there's a lot of analysis that goes with improving energy efficiency. When we look for Six Sigma projects, the major goal is, can I reduce defects using a very rigorous data-driven approach? And that is our intent. Now, if I reduce defects, there's going to be a cost savings. And so some people will say, well, what's the real purpose of Six Sigma? To reduce costs or to reduce defects? And it's to reduce defects. Not every project will reduce costs, most do. Some projects, for instance, in the healthcare industry, it's the right thing to do. Some projects, if it's a safety type of a project, it's the right thing to do. And there may not be a cost that goes with it. But for most projects, there's a nice cost savings. If I reduce defects, my customer is more satisfied. And with Six Sigma, we're looking for what we would call a breakthrough improvement, a big improvement. We see Y is a function of X. So that's a math term. And my Y is my output. That's what I want, okay? My X's, those are my contributors. All right, so if I say I want as my output a good athlete, my Y is a good athlete. And if I were to ask you what contributes to a good athlete, what would be one response? And I'll repeat them here through the mic. Give me one, quickly. Training. What else? Training, diet. What else? Oh, sleep, not on campus, is there? Okay. Exercise. What else? Motivation. What else?
Coaches.
Coaches sometimes come into play, we think. Genetics. Practice. So my youngest daughter was a softball player in college, and so we went to as she went through junior high and high school, we went to a lot of softball weekend tournaments, and so we've kind of experienced this how to develop a good athlete kind of thing, and you've left a couple off the list. Did you know that as long as you're winning, you don't shave your legs? Okay, so you cannot shave your legs if you are winning. And if you won your first game at a tournament, you can't wash the jersey. So they would play on Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. And if you won the first game, you can't wash the jersey because there's luck on that dirt. And then if you washed it off, you're just done for, okay? And you have to have Burger King Cine Minis for breakfast. Where we live is we would go down the hill from our subdivision, there was a Burger King. So we hit the drive-through, Burger King Cine Minis. And so what we do in the measure phase is we get the list of potential X's. The good, the bad, and the ridiculous, all right? You will find when you do process improvement, there's always somebody or many people on your teams that know just exactly what the problem is, all right? And you look at it and you think, Does really shaving your legs influence your win-loss record? Come on, sweetie. Okay, but maybe in somebody's mind it does. So there's no ridicule, there's no judgment at this point. And that's the beauty of Six Sigma, is it takes emotion off the table, because what we're going to do in the analyze phase is we're going to get data. And we can measure diet, right? We can measure sleep, the type of training they do. Motivation's a little tougher, but we might be able to come up with something there. But we can look at genetics and the way they practice. We can measure teams that shave their legs and teams that don't. And you know what? We just don't have enough data to support that. You know what? So we're not going to spend much time there. And this thing about not washing your jersey, we can't support that with data. You know, so I know you think so, but since we can't support it with data, we're not going to go down that path. And these ones where, when we look at data, right, and we can say, yeah, those influence my output, those are the ones we take into the improve phase and focus on. So that's where our y is a function of x. That's where that comes from. What is it that drives the process? Okay. That's Six Sigma. Questions on Six Sigma so far? We're going to switch. We're going to switch to lean. Lean. Let's look at how we used to do work. Work is, in the 1800s, was very much a craftsman. So if you were a blacksmith, you took somebody under your wing, often a son, and you trained them in that skill. The downside of the craftsman kind of work training methodology is I can only train 1 or 2 people at a time, and it's slow, all right? And so Henry Ford came along with mass production in the early 1900s, and that idea of the moving assembly line. Now I didn't need to know everything about building a car. I only needed to know my little piece of the world, right? My little task. Frank Gilbreth, his contribution was time studies, time motion studies. He's well known for developing the scaffolding and the improvements that he made in the construction industry, just looking at efficiency and the excess motions that it took to lay bricks. What we associate with lean really comes out of the Toyota production system in the 50s. And so that's really where our current day lean comes from. There's an American counterpart. He wrote the Machine That Changed the World. And so he's a contributor to our current day lean as well. When we look at lean, these are the themes we'll see. Very customer focused. What's my customer want? I'm looking to do things more efficiently. That way I can get a competitive advantage on my competitors. Lean is all about eliminating waste. So reducing waste, increasing efficiency, that's kind of is lean in a nutshell. We do that by looking at cycle times. If I become more efficient, what do? Reduce costs. It's very team focused as well. So you'll see some common themes on the lean side that we also saw on the Six Sigma side. Lean is focused around flow. It's not as rigorous in methodology as the Six Sigma is. So it starts with identifying what adds value to the customer. Is this something my customer is willing to pay for? Or is it just something I do? So what is my customer willing to pay for? And then what's the process or the value stream that goes with that? And so in lean, we do a lot of process mapping or value stream mapping, looking for what's non-value added. And then we really focus on flow, how work is done, whether it's balanced, and whether everybody has an equal proportion of work. And if I'm good there, then we can move more to what's called a pull versus a push. A push is you buy a music CD. And on that music CD, how many songs are you? I don't know, 12, 13 or so. That's a push. I only wanted one, but how many did I get? Great value, right? I had 13 I didn't really want. A pull is your iTunes, your Pandora, your Spotify. Those type of processes allow you to pull and only listen to the songs that I want. So a push means I'm working, and here it's coming. Ready or not, you've got it. A pull is I get it, what I want, when I want it, not before. And then the idea of perfection, continuously trying to pursue and get better. Here's a difference between Lean and Six Sigma. Lean is about baby steps. I want to make a little improvement. I'm not looking to fix the whole shebang. I just want a little improvement. And so we work through processes and we look at a process and we say, you know what? If we change this one thing, we can be a little more efficient. So we change that one thing. In Six Sigma, we're looking for the breakthrough improvement. And so we're looking to do a deep dive and fix the whole thing in one fell swoop. Versus in Lean, we do baby steps. Lean's all about waste. And so we can classify waste. You'll see different words in different texts. So let me just look at correction. Sometimes you'll see that called rework. And anytime I have to redo something. So the first time I got a parking pass here, I went online and I clicked my submit button and I got a message that my credit card was denied. I thought, there's nothing wrong with my credit card. So guess what I did? I did it again. And I got the same message that my credit card was denied. I thought, I'll just go tomorrow and go on campus and get my parking pass. So guess what I got in the mail 3 days later? 2 parking passes, right? Okay. What kind of rework did that create, right? So a waste, me doing it a second time, coming on campus, having to send it back, go through that whole process was a rework process. Overproduction. So this is where I make more than I need. I print more than I need. As I look around the room, I probably didn't print enough today. But if I had walked away and I still had 20 handouts, then I printed too many. Okay? So making more than I need. Manufacturers will do this when they process in big batches. I went to one place where every batch size was 5,000 and they just made little tiny things. But every batch size was 5,000 because that was what somebody had determined was the economic best number. And so they processed 5,000 every time. So if the order was for 20, I had a whole lot left over, right? And so they just went on little trays, real nice and neat, and stuck on a shelf. And then forgotten. So the next time they needed an order, guess what happened? I made 5,000 more. Overproduction, making more than I need. Processing is making it harder than it needs to be. When you get to the end of the day and you say, it should not have been that difficult to do that, usually there's overprocessing. In a lot of business worlds, simple expenditures take lots of signatures, lots of approvals to buy 3 cases of paper, or sometimes things a little larger than that. Overprocessing. The more people that have to touch it, right, the harder that process becomes. Conveyance. This is transportation. If I'm moving something from one place to another, picking up and moving a document, I'm picking it up and I'm taking it to the registrar to sign, right? That's transportation. Inventory. Inventory is my stuff. How much stuff do we have? The thing about stuff, especially in industry, is I've spent that money. And there it sits and I'm not using it. And then, what's my risk? It can get damaged, right? Somebody's got to move it to get it out of the way so they can get to something else. And so then we lose track of it. It gets lost. If it hangs out too long, maybe it might just disappear, right? Sometimes it's easier to buy a new one than to find the one we already have, right? So inventory, huge cost to businesses. Motion is the movement it takes me to do my job. And if you're in an office and the printer's down the hall, you know, part of your motion for your job is to go down and pick up the printed papers. If you're in a more of a manufacturing environment, your motion is the bending, stooping, punching, dropping in a basket, kind of a motion that would take place in those jobs, right? The more time I spend bending and stooping and walking, the less time I spend working. And then waiting, who needs to explain that one, right? We wait and wait all the time. Intellect. Sometimes this is called underutilization, not fully utilizing people to their fullest capacity. During the recession a few years ago, people with master's degrees took entry-level positions. It was a job, right? And if the company didn't use that person to their fullest potential, underutilization. Companies buy great software, right? All the bells and whistles, but they use this much of it. Can do this much, a lot, but they just use a small piece of it. So they've underutilized a software, an application, data. Companies will collect lots of data, but if you don't use it, I've just wasted people's time and effort and storage space on a server somewhere with data that doesn't get used. Underutilization. These are the major wastes we would see in industry. So lean is all about being more efficient, getting the waste out. So the projects that we see most often here are around cycle times, reducing efficiencies, throughputs, increasing throughputs, reducing wait times, down times. See a common word of time in that? A lot of lean projects are about streamlining and getting time out. Now, this is not to offend lean practitioners, but here's how I think about it. I get a lot of low-hanging fruit with lean. Okay. One of the criticisms of Six Sigma is we overcomplicate it, right? So if I've got a fairly straightforward problem, we're just having some issues getting something done on time, maybe I could utilize my lean tools for a focused effort in that project. And Six Sigma, I reserve for highly complex projects, projects with a lot of data, data-intensive projects, where I really need that analysis that goes with the Six Sigma. And so it's about using the right tools for the issue that you're trying to address. Now, Lean Six Sigma, when I got my training back in the 90s, they were separate methodologies. I got my Lean training 6 months, or I got my Six Sigma training. 6 months later, I got my Lean training. They were very separate and very different, but they do have some similarities. They both originated in manufacturing, but since then, they've migrated to lots of other industries. They both focus on process improvement. They both have tools to support their methodology. They both require management support in order to be successful. And they both use data to verify progress. Six Sigma uses the data a whole lot more than what Lean does, but Lean isn't void of using data to prove success. So let's just do a side-by-side comparison. So the theories behind Six Sigma: reduce variation, Lean is reducing waste. Look at the methodology. DMAIC, define, measure, analyze, improve, control, versus a process that's focused around value and flow. The focus of Six Sigma, I'm looking at a problem. I'm looking at a defect. The focus of lean is flow, how it moves through a process. So when we go to measure success, Six Sigma, we're measuring some percentage of defects. When we measure lean projects, we're often measuring the time that it takes to complete that process, or a cycle time, or a lead time. Six Sigma is where you see the certifications, the green, the yellow, the black. Lean traditionally was unstructured, but the Society of Manufacturing Engineers, they have a bronze, silver, gold kind of a certification. It gets a little muddy. I was looking at a lean site, and they called it a green belt, a black belt, a master black belt, but it was all lean tools that were done. So lean traditionally was a little unstructured from a certification perspective. Change agents. In the Six Sigma world, you have a few people, just a few people trained in Six Sigma, and they're going to lead projects. Lean has a different approach. If we do training in lean, it's generally everybody, from the lowest person, and you start with the lowest people almost. Yeah, you do a little management overview so they know what's going on, but when I do lean companies, it's giving the worker the empowerment to control and manage their process and improve their processes. And so if you were to go into for instance, a Toyota plant, you know, the lowest level line worker, they're in a little work cell, and they have that authority to make improvements in that work cell. Six Sigma comes out of more of our American culture. So we're a top-down culture, right? And so Six Sigma's just got a few people that are trained in the Six Sigma tools that can manage the statistics and understand the data analysis, and then they lead projects. So very different approaches. One's a bottom-up, one's more of a top-down approach. Since Six Sigma has all of the statistics, you have to be comfortable with math. You don't have to be a statistician. I particularly hate statistics, okay? And if you'd have told me when I got my master's degree that I would be teaching Six Sigma, I said, there's no way. I just really didn't like statistics. But you at least have to be comfortable with math concepts. We use a software called Minitab. It's kind of an industry standard for the statistics that just make it palatable. In lean, anybody. So we've trained people without high school educations, and they are very much able to utilize lean and do their process improvements. So top-down approach is a Six Sigma approach. Bottom-up or empowerment of the people is the lean approach. Underlying sciences for Six Sigma statistics. Lean uses industrial engineering. So if you got your degree in industrial engineering, and you were trained in lean. They might not have called it that, but you were in essence trained in lean. With Six Sigma, we look for consistency, reducing variation. Lean, we're trying to reduce the flow. Now, here's how they work together. If I become more consistent, what happens? I am forced to get waste out of my process, all right? Which means I'm going to have a faster throughput, right? If my goal is to reduce time in a process, I have to be more consistent in the way I perform that process. So a byproduct of Six Sigma is lean. A byproduct of lean is Six Sigma. Okay. So neither is without their criticisms. With Six Sigma, the biggest criticism we hear is it takes too long. Let's think about it. The training takes 16 days, and so Who wants to be off work for 16 days? That's a lot of time if you want to be a black belt. The projects take longer. It takes time to go out and collect data. It takes time to understand what that current state is. It takes time to meet with teams. And so a typical Six Sigma project may take 6 months. It's kind of standard. So yeah, it takes a long time. And so there's an impatience that goes with Six Sigma. Lean, the criticisms of Lean is you don't pay enough attention to the data, that you're just maybe going a little too quick, a little too fast, and is used for simpler problems, not the real complex problems. A typical Lean project, we talk about Kaizen events, and those are traditionally a 5-day. So 5 days versus 6 months. Okay, big difference in the time that it takes to complete those. So Lean focuses on flow. A big inhibitor to flow is defects, which is what Six Sigma's positioned to do. Six Sigma focuses on variation, but a big reason for variation is I have a lot of non-value added stuff, a lot of waste within my process, which Lean is positioned to take care of. So utilizing both really helps expand your abilities in problem solving. And so what industry has done is combined and said, well, let's do Lean Six Sigma. And so what does that mean? If we were to look at kind of the core training that you would expect in Lean, those are the topics you should cover. If you look at the core topics of Six Sigma, those are the topics that are traditionally within Six Sigma. And notice there's a lot of statistical topics within that. And so that's what you would expect. If it's Lean Six Sigma, it should really be a blend of both of those. And so kind of beware, since the terminology's just gotten muddy, know what you want. And so when I talk to an organization, what's your issues? And if they start talking about time-related things, well, I think, well, you really need to be doing some Lean applications here. And if they're talking about where I was this morning, it was a courthouse. I was a clerk of courts, and we're looking at the court process and getting people processed through that court system. A lot of complexity, lots of errors and defects. They need more of the Six Sigma type of tools. And so, if you're looking to hire a black belt or a green belt, or you're looking to do Six Sigma, there's a lot of short courses out there, but just be aware that may or may not be what you want. So you really have to look at the content. So if it's called Lean Six Sigma, do you want to make sure you're getting some of the Six Sigma tools within that? Another big key on whether it's truly a Six Sigma is whether you have to turn in a project for certification. If there's no project involved, that was kind of the big emphasis for Six Sigma is the application. So our requirements for either one, if we're going to be successful in either one, there has to be a management commitment. If you just send somebody to a Lean class or a black belt class and expect them to carry the load, not going to happen, so you need an education and a training plan. Really look at the projects that you want to do and how well they tie to corporate goals. If they don't tie to what the corporate objectives are, nobody's going to care when you go to implement. Okay, so you might have just spent 3 months of time meeting with a team. Nobody really cares about it in the end. And so really be specific about the types of projects that you pick. Understand either way there's going to be a time commitment. It takes time to meet with a Lean group for a few days to look at a flow issue. It takes a real-time commitment if you're going to venture into a Six Sigma project. Either one, we have to have a good way of communicating. In Lean Six Sigma, we focus on the technical pieces. We don't focus a whole lot on the change management and the people side. And consequently, some projects go under just because we didn't pay enough attention to all the people side of that project. And so if we're going to, go through a change process, we really need to make sure we have a good communication plan in there as well. In addition, when you do a successful project, people get excited and they get motivated. My first project, my black belt project back in the 1990s, was to reduce bacteria growth in E-coat. Okay, so do you know what E-coat is? It's the gray primer coat that is underneath the pretty colored paint on your vehicles. And if you see peeling paint on a vehicle, it's probably not the color phase, it's the E-coat that didn't provide a good surface for adherence. And so we had an issue with bacteria growing within that. And in paint, if bacteria grows, the solids clump out in the bottom and you get kind of a scum. And so it's very expensive in industry to clean that up. You got to think of a giant swimming pool big enough to fit a semi in, right? So that's very expensive to clean out. And so somebody would have to, we would evacuate and somebody would put on all the safety gear. And on Friday nights, he would put a chemical in that would kill the bacteria. And then he would leave. And a few hours later, we could all go back to work. So it was always done on a weekend. Now, that was an issue that had plagued that facility since it was built, 10 years. And when I got and I was a little peon, right? So I was just a little peon quality engineer, and my team was a non-degreed lab tech, a plumber, and a brand new supervisor, and me. And so we're not talking, the intellectual highlights of the organization. It was just us. And the corporate technical team had worked on that for several years. And I inherited a little file of all the things they had tried and just couldn't crack it. And our little team of nobodies finished in 3 months. Okay? And it was such a simple solution. What do you do to your swimming pools to keep bacteria from growing? Chlorinate. Ingenious, isn't it? Every 6 months we would dump those. Just swish a little chlorine around. And that fixed it. That fixed our bacterial issue. You know what that did to that team of, in essence, common people? They were pumped, especially that plumber, because nobody had ever asked for his opinion. Nobody had ever asked for his opinion before. And he came to me right after that and said, Karen, I got another project. And we finished 2 projects before anybody in my training class finished the first one. Not because of me, but because that plumber and that lab tech got so excited that they had another one. They had a brain full of ideas. So just having a network where I can communicate success. So success will breed success. And so you do a project and you do it well, people are all excited about doing another. And just being able to recognize, I'm not talking about monetary rewards, but just recognition of a job well done. So start with a common approach, right? So what I typically recommend is if you have done nothing from a continuous improvement perspective, start with lean. Lean's simple to understand, it's quick to learn. We're just looking for baby steps. We're not looking to solve world hunger. And so we can implement it very quickly and you get a quick return on that investment. Okay. Then, do that for a year or so and you will see people rise to the top. There are some people that just love problem solving. They're really good at project management. And so take those people and make those your green belts or your black belts, and then go attack some larger, more complex issues. All right. So start with the easy thing first. What questions do you have? I have an example project, but I don't want to shortchange the questions. Want me to keep going? Okay, here's an example project that I did a few years ago. I went to work for the consulting firm that trained me, and they had a kind of a try it before you buy it deal. And if you were not real sure whether Six Sigma is for you, they'd send a master black belt in to do a project for you. And that's where this project came. Their issue was credits. So they'd send out an invoice, and then something was wrong with it. And so the next month they were sending out a credit. So 8% of the invoices that were sent out were credits. And so the goal was to reduce it from 8% to 4% and save them $300,000. And so we choose what we're going to measure. And this was a really broad project. So I had 2 champions. Quite frankly, this is the only time I've ever had 2 champions. And then a really, really large team. And so in the define phase, what we do is we start and we look at history. And you can see where our goal was right there. Okay. And when I finished this, it was just short of that. And in the measure phase, we just try and understand what's going on. And these are the issues for issuing credits. And the first one was an allowable, and that had to do with discounts you gave distributors who sold a lot. All right, business decision. I didn't think I could do a lot there. Somebody orders the wrong product. Oh, that's hard to get a handle on too, right? I don't control what you order. The third one was accounting only. If the discrepancy was under $100, no questions asked, you got a credit. I thought that number was a little big, but once again, it was a business decision. And as an outsider, I try not to kind of get in the way of those. So clear down here, number 4 is defective product. All right, so I'm missing a good 50% on things I didn't feel like I could control. And so I felt a little uncomfortable at that point, a little nervous since I had to come up with $300,000 worth of savings, and I didn't really feel like I could touch half of it at this point. All right, so I went with customers ordering the wrong product. I was hoping I could find a poor salesman or a website flaw or a catalog issue, and really didn't. You know, I didn't need it. I over-ordered. I canceled the project. Things as a supplier I really couldn't control. But we plow forward. So if I'm issuing a credit, I have to have a reason for that. And so we did something called a gauge R&R. And what you do is you take, 23 credits, and you give them to people who normally would assess these and say, is this coded correctly? And they have to say yes or no. And there's a lot of numbers on this page, but this is the important one, this 33%. And that says they agreed on the coding 33% of the time. So what's that tell me about my data? If they only agree 33% of the time, it stinks. And that's what I'm going to use to make decisions on. So that's the first thing I have to fix is, are we coding it all correctly? Now, I can't keep you from ordering the wrong product, but if you order the wrong product, you're going to send it back to me. And so what's that process look like? They had a policy, you had 30 days to return it. And so when we looked at their history, you can see 30 days, that's the red line with the UB. And look at all those after that. Okay. Up to over 300. And these are business days, not calendar days. So a year. So anything out there in the 200, 300 was easily obsolete and just getting thrown away. Is that a problem? Absolutely. And so we look at the process, and what you see in yellow are what we considered black holes, where the process could fall through. And so that's where we focused our corrections. When I started the project, I was told if I just went to these three distributors, there were 3. if I went to these 3 distributors and got them in line, that would fix my problem. Pre-Six Sigma, I would have spent a month at each of those distributors digging into their business and looking to see what I can find, and we make some changes. And then I'd take my data, 3-4 months later. This is a statistical test, right? It's an ANOVA test. And I put those 3 distributors in with the others, and I ask the question, is there a difference in my distributors? And I get a p-value with that, 0.779. Those of you who are in statistics, what's that mean? Is there a difference or is there no difference? Oh, I see squinting. Oh, you should know this. No difference. There is no difference in my distributors. And look at this R-square, 1.92%. So not only is it no difference, it's only less than 2% of my problem. Now, pre-Six Sigma, what would I have done? I would have trusted their judgment. They should know. They worked there. And I would go 3 months on the road, checking out distributors. By doing this test up front, I just saved myself 3 months, right? So this is the real value of bringing data and statistics into problem solving. So I've just shown you a snippet of the project, but ordering wrong project, those were the issues. We had several corrections that we decided to implement. And then there was one thing I thought they could do that they didn't really want to. So I just kind of stick it out there as the outsider and saying, if anybody ever picks up this report, then, it's there. So that's the improve phase. I know what to improve now. And then I have to standardize. This is my control phase. I standardize all the warehouses, make sure everybody's trained, everybody knows what to do, modify work instructions, and put those into play. And then we validate success. It's not change for the sake of change. Did we make a difference? My p-value of 0 says, yep, we did. And then there was the finance. So when I started this project, they thought they were spending close to $1 million in labor to correct these. When we actually measured it, it wasn't nearly the issue from a labor perspective that they thought. And if I had to squeeze $300,000 out of labor, it wasn't going to happen. But fortunately, we uncovered something much bigger. Look at those freight costs. Look at those returns that were scrapped. Look at the returns processing. Cha-ching, right? By correcting those, we made a huge impact. Yeah, we saved a little bit on labor, but the biggest result was in just managing the way returns were processed. So I put this project in for 2 reasons. One is every company processes invoices and has to issue credit. The second one is, this is a project we started in one direction, but the data sent us someplace else. Okay? So we started really looking at why we process credits and how that's done, and uncovered really something much bigger. Look at these write-offs. $65,000. You know what those were? Freight charges. Freight charges. So if you get your bill and there's an $80 freight charge and you don't pay the $80 and you get an automatic credit, are you ever going to pay a freight charge? No. So this was just going to grow. So the overall savings for this project was $600,000. From a traditional project, that's probably a little high. Okay, we get those $1 million projects, and those are nice, but they're not a standard project. It really depends on the volume that you have. So lots of different. I could put up 100 different projects. This was a utility bill. This one was a company looking at their retirement benefits and why people weren't putting them in online. So Lean and Six Sigma both provide us a focus, effort on a problem. I'm going to reduce costs, or I can grow revenue, either one. it really empowers and develops people. I mean, you let people take charge of their jobs, and because they work in it every day and they know they have all kinds of ideas on how to improve that. That really helps develop people. It gives you a common language and a common methodology to approach problems. So here's my 5-second commercial. I do Lean Six Sigma training, organizational development, trained a bunch of people. Last couple of years, the state of Ohio thought this was important enough that they offered grants and scholarships for local government workers to go through a Lean training, and trained about 400 local government workers there, all different kinds of industries. And there you have my contact information and just a few of the clients, So there's my commercial. What questions do you have? Yes, sir.
Yeah, how much company usually pay for this service?
What do they pay for this service? It's hard to say.
Doing a project of 6 months?
Yeah, so what I charge is a daily rate, and the length of the project, the daily rate adjusts. So if I'm doing a 3-day project, I might charge you a little more on a daily rate because then I have to go find another job, right? If you're committing to me for 6 months, then the daily rate decreases, and we would do it more by a project. And so it varies. Let me just say, in the 90s, I think the company I worked for, it was $1 million is what they paid for the training, but it's nothing like that today. Back then, if I went to an open enrollment black belt class, it was 45 grand. Nothing like that today. So what you've seen over time is the price has really gone down for those kind of trainings. Yes.
What kind of industry have you invited?
Everything. I have worked in, well, just last couple of years, a lot in government, of course, manufacturing. Let me just say, when I first started out, I spent the first 2 years in Detroit, okay? Everything was manufacturing. And then all of a sudden it flipped. And I rarely do a manufacturing company. It's just a real small. And so then it went into healthcare and finance, education a little bit. I think kind of the academic world is has been a little slower to implement these kind of tools to their processes, but all kinds of industries utilize this today. Any type of a transactional payroll services, just you do a monster search on black belt, green belt, and you'll just see all kinds of industries. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question from somebody who's been listening
Yes.
to the YouTube link. I'm going to do verbatim. So, any experience considering interruptions as waste or special cause variation impacting continuous flow? For example, receiving cell phone call while serving customers.
Yes. Yeah. So let's think about that. Actually, when we talk Lean, I talk a little bit about that because we have this whole mindset of let's multitask. And so let's think about when I multitask. I'm doing a spreadsheet, and I'm putting in formulas, and then I get a phone call. All right, so I take my phone call. How long does it take me to refocus where I was? You know, did I put this formula in, or did I put this number in? What cell was I in? You know, so you lose a couple minutes in refocus time every time you change gears. And so some people say, oh, I'm so great at multitasking. In reality, every time I switch tasks, my mind has to reset, and it's a huge waste. I once got a email response from somebody who said, I sent him an email, and he sent back and says, I will respond to emails at noon and at 4. Thank you for your consideration. I mean, because what's email do? Or text, or you know, interrupt. And you get to the end of the day, and you think, I got nothing done, right? Yeah, so we talk about that in Lean, because Lean is not just physical stuff. It is all that electronic people activity that takes place. So true. Other questions? Okay. We thank you. We thank you.
We'd like to thank everybody who joined us today, all those here in this room, and also those who are joining us via YouTube. If you have any questions, you have Karen's information in front of you. Also, please feel free to shoot us an email if you have any comments for the ISC group, please watch your emails and watch our website. I will be sending out a link to a SurveyMonkey to ask you to kind of rate this webinar and let us know what you think and how it went, okay? And I guess at this time, we will end this webinar. So again, thank you for attending. Yes. Who has it? Lisa has it.
Let's just go and thank her from the student chapter as well. We have a souvenir there.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Didn't expect that. Guys,
What do you want?
You got it?
Yeah.
Hold on, I got it.
With the
Guys,
souvenir.
before you leave, make sure you've signed in.
Where's the?
All right, can I get a picture of you with her?
Wait a minute.
Check on the other side of the room. I need a picture with somebody. Whoever would like to be in it. You're the next
All right.
person.
Group photo.
Group photo, yes, yes.
You want to hand it again?
Yes.
It's on,
You started
yeah.
How are you get up there too?
Make sure you smile.
Do make sure you smile. All right. Great, thank you. Thank you.
I love your example. I got excited. We just went over and
Look, real life application of statistics, okay, guys?
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, I wish I could say back. I have a conference call, but excellent. That question was from Bob Myers, who finished his PhD with us doing interruptions. So I was expecting you to ask. Usually he attends every one of them. He
Okay.
said, I'm going to go and follow the YouTube link. So he did all his work at Manuel in
Oh,
healthcare.
okay.
And he is trying to explore how he's a, I don't know whether he's a black belt.
So do you guys follow along?
Yeah, we have it playing in the background.
I was just curious if you're waiting for the.
Yeah. We have a
Automotive
rough
examples.
guess when it'll be over, and then we just turn up the volume.
I understand you don't deal with widgets, you deal with patients. There's a same PhD. There's also interruptions, so he got his entire PhD out of it. So very well published, and he's going to Rotterdam. His abstract got accepted, and he went to London to present his work. So he's been all around. Maybe I'll somehow connect you guys because you might enjoy, and then go in.